Modern games suck. There are exceptions. But in my reality, I experience an almost exponential decrease in enjoyment from gaming as a whole. Is it that I am growing out of it? Maybe. But I still do play games, and some experiences keep me awake at night and manage to capture my attention in deep positive ways. Some games are frankly unexpected, like Life is Strange, which in terms of storytelling and writing is very lackluster at times. But it makes me laugh. It makes me appreciate the things it does right, while I acknowledge that in fact it is a deeply flawed product. What even is modern gaming? What difference does it pose when compared to, regular gaming? Am I being difficult? Maybe I am becoming increasingly pessimistic. I keep looking back in time to find experiences that I cannot find these days. I sometimes prefer playing something that is so obscure that even I myself forget that I played it. But at least it does not make me feel hollow when I boot up the game. Lately I even seek out games that have never been released, to play, document and study, to ultimately represent to you guys on my channel. But why do I enjoy never released games more than most fully developed titles that came out in the last 5 years? I never really thought about it. Now I am. How do we enjoy movies? You might already know where I'm getting at, but let me elaborate further. When you buy a movie, you get a disc with the movie on it. The disc contains a final product. In most cases, there's not really a chance anymore to roll out corrections. What would happen if only half of a movie was playable? What if the files on the disc were corrupted in general? What if a scene was missing in a movie release and it needed to be patched in later? What if a movie could not run on your video player? Here comes the first problem with modern gaming. How many times have you bought a game just for it to not work? I can speak for myself and also friends of mine that support for games is terrible. If they don't make money. Well, actually, even if they make money. Worse yet, customer support and refund policies are almost non-existent when you buy a game off a company's own DRM service. Best example, Activision Blizzard. No one should give a company that does not have a concrete refund policy any money. I wasted €50 on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The single player never worked, the performance was inconsistent, and the product was riddled with technical errors. There is no footage here, since I will not install the game again. I tried getting a refund in the first day of playing it, and I was told that I played for too long. How long is too long? An hour or two is too long? Apparently, simply starting the game disqualifies you from a refund. After complaining a second time, fully knowing that I will not get a refund, I got a response by a manager at Blizzard, stating that I will not receive a refund no matter what I do. The broken product, in their words, is not a sufficient enough reason for me to demand a refund. They told me to write a support ticket to Activision customer support. I did. I never got a reply. If you support Activision Blizzard, I think it is in your best interest to reconsider your support. But what if the game works? Then, in most cases, it feels uninspired. Have you noticed how many remakes are coming out? And if it isn't a remake, the next game coming out almost always is a sequel of something. New IPs are risky. Remakes and sequels are not. A trend that started happening in the past few years involving remasters and remakes of games that did not come out too long ago makes me legitimately angry. So much effort, so much time, so much money funneled into remaking an already perfectly fine experience. You could have created a sequel at the very least. But why even be careful about new IPs? The gaming industry generates more money than the music and film industry combined, and most companies do not take risks, even then. But then, there are bigger problems. For instance, the disrespectful attitude towards older properties. What is more frustrating than watching things unfold which are completely unavoidable? Like in an abusive relationship. The product is neglected and then ultimately thrown away. Every game dying is an unavoidable tragedy, but sadly a reality of the industry. Game companies would rather leave their fans unhappy than release files which could make games completely playable offline. People developed server emulators for years to be able to play their favorite MMOs and shooters in an alternative way. To anyone defending the killing of games specifically, you are wrong. There is not a good excuse to do so. If online games from 20 to 25 years ago are still playable nowadays, why is that not the case for newly released experiences like Lawbreakers and other online-only games like Blacklight Retribution? I cannot find a good reason. One of the reasons why I think that no matter what game I pick, I tend to feel disappointed.
Select and make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ironically, choice is kinda bad. No matter what version you pick, no matter if you pre-order or not, no matter if you decide to buy that DLC or not, dissatisfaction is almost always guaranteed. Buying games isn't as simple as it was 10 or 20 years ago. You went to the store and just picked out a copy of a game you liked. Now there is a standard, silver, gold and platinum version of games you can choose from. Some game companies release upgraded versions of games which harbor more content, most notably Capcom with their Street Fighter properties. But now you always have inferior and superior game versions you can pick and choose from at launch. And the most expensive of which being over $100 expensive at times. Can you believe that? Well, who am I kidding? The scene changed slowly over time. Games as a service is a cancer to the industry. Not only does this model support lazy releases, but it also gets a lot of support from the community. Why make new games if you can just keep updating one game with lots of monetized content? Many free-to-play games work like that, which is why I tend to not play them. Even AAA titles like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the new one, employ those monetization techniques. Battle passes, loot boxes, weapon skins. For what? To support the developers which get laid off en masse anyway? Monetization schemes never run in the player's favor. Sure, skins, hats and XP boosts are optional, but you would want to own that ugly but expensive skin anyways, do you? What is funny is that many games like Borderlands 3 even implemented update roadmaps, laying out what DLC comes out at what time. Why isn't that in the game already? Why is that content not in the game at launch? Even single-player games aren't spared, like Devil May Cry or Deus Ex Mankind Divided, with their in-game storefronts. When will this madness end? Of course, there are exceptions, but you have to acknowledge that the cancer has spread. The masses still pre-order. People still buy DLC. They're happy to hand over their cash to a company which exploits their underpaid workers. What makes it worse is hearing people express their displeasement, yet they wind up buying the product anyways, as if they have an obligation to please their corporate overlords. Would be funny if they even would be willing to spend their money on unfinished productions. Oh. Yeah. Right. You thought I would continuously praise indie developers, did you? There are many good development studios, both on the big budget and low budget ends of the industry. Like Arcane Studios, who seem to genuinely care about their productions, or Hello Games, who went down in history for creating the biggest scam in the gaming sphere, but ended up redeeming themselves with the multitudes of free DLC to turn a bad game into a masterpiece. Other games, such as RimWorld and Hotline Miami or The Binding of Isaac, are other indie success stories. RimWorld, in particular, was an early access game, meaning an unfinished version of the game hit the market. Early access can work, but I personally recall more times I got burned from a production than the moments a product made me feel happy for buying it. Early access makes many indie devs lazy. What if a game blows up? Well, why finish it? PUBG and DayZ happened. I bet there are more examples on the horizon for many of you viewing this video. Many games never get finished. Other games are just bad from the get-go, but ultimately improve, and the majority of titles are just trash. Shovelware is a problem, and sadly is profitable. I'm even contemplating whether or not I should develop my first game and set it on Steam to prove a point. Of course, our corporate overlords smelled blood, or rather money, in the water, and they also started releasing unfinished games and patched them later. Early access is a problem. It's helped a few that were able to produce high-quality products, but ultimately turned the marketplace into a landfill. And players like you and me continuously support it by buying that one potentially awesome game. Potentially awesome, but also potentially bad. We created an environment in which potential is good enough to sell a product. But are the developers at fault? Not entirely. Our standards have dropped far too low. After every announcement, drones rise up and decry almost anything that resembles a game concept, the next best release of the century. Look, an unnecessary remake, GOTY 2020. Another Assassin's Creed trailer which does not consist of gameplay, GOTY 2020. Hype increases excitement for a title, but it also seems to lower standards. Trailers are manipulative. They have to be to sell the game. Yet consumers seem to blindly trust promotional material and in turn, hype up the game. Hype is a double-edged sword, and in most circumstances, the consumers promote a game as being the best game ever, despite any proof, but also complain about a game turning out mediocre or bad. Yet it does not matter, since so many people pre-ordered the game, and a few of those people will continue supporting the game with microtransactions and future DLC purchases. I never was a fan of hype culture, but the first time I really felt a community in a hype mindset was when I dared to criticize Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx is a deeply flawed game, plagued with lazy scripting and numerous bugs, yet pointing these problems out is almost considered a cardinal sin. Some friends of mine decry almost every announced title as a potential Game of the Year contender. What makes you think that? Why do you value potential more than quality? Why can't we expect absolute perfection in a video game like we did before? The turning point of the industry happened in roughly 2 stages. At some point, the industry discovered hype, and at another point in time, going gold did not mean anything anymore. Back then, once a game was released, the point of no return has been passed. What released is what you got. This was good, since companies made sure to assure quality in the products on any given system. This is why console games tended to be higher quality products when compared to PC-only products. On the computer, there wasn't extensive quality assurance, since Microsoft or Apple would not act as gatekeepers. Popular bugs found in games such as Ratchet & Clank, for instance, mostly were patched out in the sequels, because the quality assurance was just this strict. Gatekeeping does not really happen anymore. Unoptimized, unfinished garbage hits the PC and console storefronts all the time, since companies can just fix the games later. In specific cases, companies even got lazier because the community will fix the game for them. Bethesda is a perfect example here. And when you combine community support with games as a service, you get a Valve game. My previous opinion piece on Valve explores their strategy a bit more, but it is worth mentioning here as well. Mod support is used to minimize work on game updates. Valve is pretty much outsourcing work to their community, so they can sell the digital items the community made back to the community. Modding is cool, but using your modders as unpaid freelancers isn't. The change in the industry cannot be directly pinpointed to one happening that changed the landscape forever. It is the combination of everything we discussed earlier in the script, and more. All we can do as consumers is vote with our wallet. But abstaining from that one game you want to play does not seem to hurt the publisher's income, mainly because thousands of other consumers happily buy the games and even put up with worse and worse products. Companies became the psychopathic friends of many consumers. They constantly make reckless decisions, kill off products entirely to in turn make them unplayable, suck their customers' wallets dry, and make them feel bad for expecting a good launch without DLC. There always seems to be a strategy to make more money, one of it being pandering. Do you really think Electronic Arts cares about you being a trans person? Corporations have shareholders and shareholders demand profits. Remember when Electronic Arts published experimental and unique properties? That was during a time at which Electronic Arts thought that experimental meant more money. That is why Dead Space and Mirror's Edge happened. Not because of art, because Electronic Arts thought it would make a lot of money. At one point, I wanted to be part of a development team. I wanted to work on what I enjoyed most, a cool video game. Whether it be a shooter, strategy game, racer, just anything. But the more I realized the realities of the industry, the more I got alienated from the idea of wanting to work on AAA productions. There are many good companies out there which value their workers and make cool games, for the sake of making cool games. Hell, many higher-ups might be really cool people, and I met a few. But the reality is that publishers are reckless. If a studio is under Electronic Arts' wings, for instance, it only is a matter of time when the studio is cannibalized by the publisher. Many companies have become complacent, like Ubisoft, which winds up making the same game over and over again for easy money. On top of that, the industry as a whole is designed to suck you dry. Underpaid work, coupled with mandatory and expected overtime, paired with unfair treatment. A developer is disposable, replaceable, and cheap. Everyone wants to work on a game, so many are willing to work for 3 months at their favorite company, just to be ultimately discarded, like a used condom. So, why do I not enjoy modern gaming? It is a combination of problems and realities I cannot simply look past. Greedy corporations who do not care about the art they create, rabid fanbases who defend properties to their death, and the fact that people that do create the games you love most likely suffered during the creation process. I think I grew to dislike gaming as a whole. I am not sad about it. I'm just glad I realized this for myself. What do you think? Thank you for watching my opinion piece on the modern gaming scene. If you want to support my productions, you can check out the links below in the description. Specifically, I want to point out my Gumroad profile, from which you can download any production 100% uncensored and before it airs on YouTube. Keep a lookout for exclusive content as well, which cannot be aired on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you there.